Rain hammered the windshield like 1,000 tiny fists, each drop reflecting the restless pace of Ethan Cole's mind. Inside his black Bentley, the billionaire barely noticed the world outside. Just numbers, meetings, and the endless hum of ambition. But that morning, something forced him to stop. It was 6:43 a.m. on a deserted Seattle street. A flickering streetlight revealed a thin boy at the bus stop, huddled beneath a broken umbrella. His leg brace gleamed under the rain, metal against skin. His shoes were soaked, one untied. He wasn't moving, wasn't scrolling a phone, wasn't waiting for anyone. He was simply there, alone, still, like a statue of forgotten hope. Ethan's instinct was to drive past. Not my problem, he thought. But then the boy looked up. Their eyes met through the glass, two lives separated by a windshield and an entire world. The boy's gaze wasn't one of pity or fear. It was calm, knowing. And in his trembling hand a piece of paper clung to the rain, its ink bleeding but legible. Something in Ethan's chest tightened. For reasons he couldn't explain, he hit the brakes. The Bentley came to a quiet stop beside the boy. The sound of rain filled the silence. Ethan lowered his window. Cold air rushed in, biting his face. "Hey, kid," he called out, trying to sound casual. "You waiting for someone?" The boy didn't answer. He simply looked at Ethan, then at the note in his hand. Slowly, he held it up to the window. Ethan leaned closer, squinting through the raindrops. The paper was creased and damp, words written in a shaky hand, but one name stood out clear as a gunshot. Ethan Cole. For a moment, the billionaire froze. His name. On a stranger's note. "Where did you get that?" he demanded, his voice harsher than intended. The boy blinked, his lips trembling. "My mom said, you'd come." The world seemed to tilt. Ethan felt an unfamiliar chill crawl up his spine. His thoughts scrambled. Who is this kid? How does he know my name? The bus rumbled in the distance, headlights cutting through the mist. But Ethan didn't move. He couldn't. Something deeper than curiosity held him there, a gravity he couldn't resist. The boy looked down, clutching the paper tight. "She told me to wait here. To wait for you." A horn blared behind him. Someone yelled for the billionaire to move. Ethan didn't even hear them. He was staring at that small, fragile figure and the rain-stained note that had just cracked open his perfectly ordered life. And for the first time in years, Ethan Cole didn't know what to do next. Ethan Cole sat motionless behind the wheel, the rain still thrumming like static against the glass. The boy's words replayed in his mind, each one heavier than the last. "She told me to wait for you." Ethan opened his door. The sound of traffic, the cold rush of air, the scent of wet asphalt, it all collided with him at once. He stepped out, water soaking his polished shoes. The boy's eyes lifted again, uncertain but steady. "What's your name?" Ethan asked, his voice softer this time. "Liam," the boy whispered. "Liam Carter." Ethan frowned. The name meant nothing, at least not yet. But something about the last name, Carter, echoed faintly in his memory. He crouched down, level with the boy, rain dripping from his coat sleeve. "Can I see that note?" Liam hesitated, then handed it over. The paper was weak, tearing slightly at the edges. Ethan carefully unfolded it. The handwriting was unmistakably feminine and shaky, like someone who had written in pain, or in a hurry. The note read, "If you find him before I'm gone, tell him I forgive him. Tell Ethan Cole he was wrong, but it's not too late. Anna." For a moment, Ethan's breath stopped. The name hit him like a punch to the chest. Anna, his late wife, the woman he'd buried 3 years ago. He stared at the boy, his mind spinning between disbelief and horror. "Who gave this to you?" "My mom," Liam said simply. The rain seemed to pause. Ethan's voice cracked. "Your mom's name?" "Anna Carter." Ethan staggered back, heart pounding. Anna Carter, the name she'd used before she married him. He could hear her voice in his memory, soft, defiant, full of the same quiet strength this boy had. But it couldn't be. Anna had died in a hospital, alone, after their separation. He'd attended the funeral. There was no child. No mention of one. Liam, Ethan murmured, struggling to breathe. How do you know me? My mom told me stories, the boy said, clutching his coat tighter. She said you were someone important, that you used to be kind. She said you forgot who you were. Ethan felt the sting of those words more than the rain on his skin. You forgot who you were. Before he could speak again, the bus hissed to a stop beside them. The driver looked out impatiently. Kid, you getting on or what? Liam shook his head. I'm waiting. For what? The driver asked. Liam glanced at Ethan, then back at the driver. For him to remember. The doors shut, and the bus pulled away, leaving the two of them in the fog. Ethan stared down at the note again, his fingers trembling. The ink was running, but the message remained. Anna's last words were clear, and they were addressed to him. He looked at the boy, at the small, fragile reflection of everything he'd lost, and realized something terrifying. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a reckoning. Ethan Cole didn't sleep that night. The image of the boy at the bus stop, the note in his hand, and that haunting signature, Anna, played on loop inside his mind like a broken film reel. He had buried Anna 3 years ago. He had seen the coffin. He had told himself there was nothing left to fix. But now everything he thought he knew about her, about himself, was falling apart. By dawn, he was sitting in his office, an empire of glass and silence high above Seattle. The city stretched beneath him like a machine he no longer controlled. His assistant knocked gently before entering, eyes widening at the sight of her boss already there, disheveled, no tie, coffee untouched. Sir, you've been here all night? She asked cautiously. Ethan didn't look up from his screen. Find me everything you can on a boy named Liam Carter, around 12 years old, lives somewhere in the city. She hesitated. May I ask? No questions, he snapped, then softened. Please, just find him. When she left, Ethan opened a private database only he had access to, one built for tracking acquisitions and competitors, not people. Yet here he was, using it to search for a child. The irony wasn't lost on him. For the first time in years, he wasn't hunting for profit. He was chasing a ghost. Hours passed before the results came in. Foster records, hospital transfers, a series of addresses like breadcrumbs through the cracks of the system. Liam Carter had been in and out of state care since age 5. No known father. Mother deceased. Anna Carter, registered in hospice 2.5 years ago. Ethan stared at the record. The date of death, the location, everything matched. Except one line. Mother's note left in possession of minor. His pulse quickened. There was a note. The same note he had seen yesterday. He leaned back, exhaling shakily. How could Anna have kept such a secret? How could she hide a child, his child, from him? Unless she'd tried to reach him and he hadn't listened. The thought cut deeper than any betrayal. He called his driver. Take me to the last listed foster address for Liam Carter. Now. The car sped through gray streets, each block a memory of decisions Ethan wished he could undo. When they arrived, the neighborhood looked tired, paint peeling, fences leaning, windows clouded with years of neglect. A woman in her 50s answered the door, suspicion in her eyes. Mrs. Dobson? He asked. She nodded warily. You the social worker? No, He hesitated. The words I'm his father caught in his throat. I'm someone who needs to help Liam. Her expression softened slightly. He's a good boy. Been through too much. Left the home 2 weeks ago when his foster placement ended. Said he was going to find someone named Ethan Cole. Guess he did. Ethan felt his knees weaken. He went looking for me? Mrs. Dobson nodded. Said it was his mom's last wish. The air around him seemed to fade. For the first time in years, Ethan felt something unfamiliar pressing against his chest. Something dangerously close to guilt. He thanked her quietly and turned back toward the car, rain beginning to fall again, soft and relentless. Somewhere out there, a boy with his eyes and Anna's courage had crossed an entire city just to hand him a note. A message from the woman he had loved and lost. And Ethan Cole knew this was only the beginning. The truth was out there, waiting. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. It trailed down the glass walls of Ethan's penthouse like the tears he refused to shed. He stood alone before the window, Seattle's skyline shimmering in the distance, haunted by a single name on that worn piece of paper: Anna Carter. He had built a life out of control, precision, and power. But now, everything felt unsteady, as if one secret, one boy, had pulled a thread that was unraveling the entire empire. Ethan's phone buzzed on the desk. His assistant's voice came through the speaker. "Mr. Cole, I found something. You asked about Anna Carter's past records. There's a hospital entry 15 years ago. She listed an emergency contact under your company's name." Ethan's brow furrowed. "My company? You're sure?" "Yes, sir. It was a work-related file. She was listed as an assistant in your real estate division." The room seemed to tilt. Memories began to resurface, faint, fragmented, like sunlight through fog. A young woman, earnest and bright, delivering reports late into the night. The way she'd laugh when he was too serious. How she believed he could be good before he believed it himself. He remembered her quitting abruptly, saying she needed a life that didn't revolve around someone else's success. That was 12 years ago, right around the time Liam would have been born. Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. "Oh my God." He opened his laptop and scrolled through archived employment files until he found her profile. Anna Carter, Administrative Assistant, Cole Properties, 2011-2013. Attached was an internal memo from HR. He clicked it open. Subject: Medical leave request. Anna Carter. Reason: pregnancy complications. Expected absence: 4 months. The air left his lungs. He sat back in his chair, the paper trembling in his hands. She hadn't just disappeared. She had been pregnant. His phone rang again. It was his assistant. "Sir, there's a boy downstairs asking for you. Says his name is Liam." Ethan froze. "Send him up." Moments later, the elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Liam stepped out, his small frame dwarfed by the luxury around him. His leg brace clicked quietly with each step. He carried a plastic bag and that same soaked note, now pressed between 2 sheets of cardboard to keep it safe. "Hi," he said simply. Ethan swallowed hard. "Liam, how did you find me?" "You're everywhere," the boy said, glancing at the city view. "Billboards, buildings. My mom said if I ever needed help, I should find the man who forgot who he was." Ethan felt something crumble inside him. "Why now? Why did she tell you to find me?" Liam hesitated, then opened the bag. Inside was a small, worn photograph. Anna, smiling on a beach, her arm around a baby. The boy in the picture had the same piercing gray eyes Ethan saw in the mirror every morning. "She told me before she got sick," Liam said quietly. "Said you deserved a chance to remember." Ethan reached for the photo, his hand shaking. The weight of 12 lost years pressed down on him. Every meeting, every deal, every empty night. "Liam," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Was she happy?" "She was," Liam said, "except when she talked about you. Then she got quiet. But she said she forgave you." Ethan turned toward the rain-soaked city, his reflection blurred in the glass. He'd spent his life chasing everything money could buy. But the one thing he truly needed, a family, a chance to make things right, had been waiting at a bus stop, holding a note from the past. As he looked back at Liam, a realization hit him like lightning. The resemblance wasn't just emotional. The boy wasn't a stranger. He was blood, and Ethan was about to prove it. The sterile scent of the private clinic clung to the air. Antiseptic, sharp, unforgiving. Ethan sat in the waiting room beside Liam, both of them silent, both pretending not to notice how their hands kept brushing the same armrest. The billionaire, usually immovable, couldn't stop tapping his foot. He'd told himself this was a formality, that he needed proof, not emotion, but deep down he already knew. The doctor entered, a woman in her 40s with a calm, practiced smile. "Mr. Cole, thank you for coming in on short notice. We can perform the DNA test today. It's quick. Results within 24 hours. Liam looked small under the bright lights, swinging his legs nervously. Does it hurt? Just a cheek swab, the doctor assured him. Won't even feel it. Ethan nodded absently, eyes fixed on the boy. Every instinct told him this was absurd, but another voice, quiet, insistent, whispered, "You already know the truth." As the doctor collected the samples, Ethan felt time stretch painfully. Every scrape of the swab, every scribble on the clipboard felt like a judgment. When it was done, they stepped back into the hallway. Rain streaked the tall windows once again, turning the city into a blur of silver and gray. Liam held the note in his hands, folding and unfolding it, like it gave him strength. "You really didn't know about me?" he asked softly. Ethan hesitated. "No, I didn't. If I had—" He stopped himself. The truth was heavier than he could voice. If he'd known, would he have changed? Or would he have ignored it, just like everything else that wasn't part of his empire? Liam studied him quietly, then said, "Mom said everyone deserves a second chance." Ethan looked down. She always believed that. They rode the elevator down in silence. The lobby was crowded, umbrellas dripping, cell phones ringing, a rush of strangers living their lives. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that the world had become louder since Liam appeared, as if life itself was reminding him he wasn't in control anymore. Outside, the boy limped slightly as they crossed to the car. Ethan instinctively reached out to steady him, and for the first time, Liam didn't pull away. That simple gesture, contact, trust, did more damage to Ethan's walls than any accusation ever could. Back in the Bentley, as the city rolled past, Liam turned toward him. "If it says you're my dad, what happens then?" Ethan gripped the steering wheel, jaw tight. "Then I make things right, whatever it takes." The boy nodded, watching raindrops chase each other down the window. "Mom used to say you could fix anything." Ethan's throat tightened. She was wrong about that. That night he didn't go home. He sat in his office again, lights dim, the city below glowing like molten glass. In front of him was a photo of Anna, the same one Liam had brought. She was smiling at something off camera, free, alive, untouched by the man he had become. The next morning, the phone rang. The doctor's voice came through, quiet but clear. "Mr. Cole, the results are in. There's no doubt. The test shows a 99.9% probability. Liam Carter is your biological son." Ethan didn't speak. The words echoed in his skull until they blurred into a single, undeniable truth. He had a son. He set the phone down carefully. His empire, the skyscrapers, the wealth, the legacy, suddenly felt meaningless next to one simple truth. Somewhere out there, a boy who had once waited alone at a bus stop wasn't waiting anymore. He had found his father, and Ethan Cole's second chance had just begun. For the first time in years, Ethan Cole didn't go to work. His assistant's calls went unanswered. His board meetings were postponed. His empire could wait, because the truth could not. He sat across from Liam in the sunlit corner of a quiet cafe, steam rising from untouched cups of cocoa. The boy's brace squeaked softly as he shifted in his seat, looking at Ethan with a mix of hope and fear. "So, it's true?" Liam asked finally. Ethan nodded, his voice barely steady. "Yes, it's true. You're my son." The boy blinked, the words landing heavier than either of them expected. He stared down at the mug, tracing circles in the condensation. "Mom said, if I ever found you, I should tell you not to be angry, that it wasn't her fault." Ethan's throat tightened. She didn't have to tell me that. But she did, because he'd given her every reason to believe otherwise. He leaned back, eyes distant, his mind tumbling through time. "When I met your mom, I was nobody. Just a man trying to build something that mattered. She was the only one who made me feel like a human being instead of a machine. But I chose the company over her. I told myself I'd come back when things settled. They never did." Liam listened silently. Outside, cars passed, splashing through shallow puddles. The city felt strangely small, like it existed only for the two of them. "Why didn't you come back?" the boy asked. Ethan smiled bitterly. "Because I was too proud to admit I'd lost her, and too afraid to face what I'd done." Liam looked up. "She wasn't mad. She said you were just Lost. Those words hit him harder than any accusation. Lost. Anna had seen through him even in absence. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the note, the one Liam had carried through the rain. The paper was frayed now, the ink faded, but the message still burned. Tell Ethan Cole he was wrong, but it's not too late. She always believed in people, Ethan said quietly, even when they didn't deserve it. Liam's small hand moved toward his. For a moment, Ethan hesitated, but then he let it happen. The boy's grip was fragile, yet grounding. I don't want anything from you, Liam said. Mom told me never to ask for things. She just wanted me to find you, to make sure you were okay. Ethan swallowed hard. You found me, Liam, but I'm the one who isn't okay. The cafe door chimed as a gust of wind swept in. Ethan glanced out the window and froze. Across the street, cameras flashed. A reporter, microphone in hand, was pointing toward them. Behind her, a news van bore his company's logo. Mr. Cole, she shouted through the glass. Is it true you've been seen with a child claiming to be your son? Liam's eyes widened. They found us? Ethan stood, pulling the boy close. We're leaving. As they hurried toward the back exit, flashes followed them, questions cutting through the air like knives. Who is the boy? Why the secrecy? Is this the reason you disappeared from the company? By the time they reached the alley, Ethan's phone was already vibrating nonstop. His PR chief, his board, the vultures circling the scent of scandal. He silenced the phone and turned to Liam. From this moment on, no one is going to hurt you. Not the media. Not the company. No one. The boy's voice trembled. What are you going to do? Ethan looked toward the skyline, toward the towering building that bore his name, the empire that had cost him everything. I'm going to tell them the truth, he said. All of it. He knew what that meant. His reputation, his wealth, his control. It would all crumble. But for the first time, Ethan Cole didn't care. Because somewhere in the chaos of the world, a small boy had reminded him of the only thing that ever really mattered. And he wasn't about to lose him again. The next morning, the headlines exploded. Ethan Cole's secret son, billionaire, caught in scandal. The hidden heir of Cole Enterprises. Charity or cover-up. By noon, Ethan's name was everywhere. From the front page of the Wall Street Journal to gossip feeds that thrived on the taste of blood. Every camera, every opinion, every whisper revolved around him, and around the boy whose quiet existence had just ignited a war. Inside the boardroom of Cole Enterprises, the air was suffocating. The long table gleamed beneath the harsh fluorescent lights surrounded by faces he'd once trusted. Now, they looked at him like an infection to be removed. Ethan, began Marcus Shaw, his CFO. We've managed crises before, but this one's personal. The shareholders are panicking. They're calling for transparency. They want DNA confirmation. They'll get it, Ethan said evenly. I'm not hiding from this. You're missing the point, Marcus snapped. If the boy is your son, it complicates everything. Trust funds, inheritance, the board's stability. Then let it, Ethan interrupted. His voice was low, steady, dangerous. I built this company to last beyond my mistakes. If it can't survive the truth, maybe it shouldn't survive me. Gasps rippled across the room. He saw fear in their eyes. Fear not of scandal, but of a man who no longer cared about power. After the meeting, reporters swarmed outside the glass tower. Ethan exited through the main doors anyway, ignoring his security team's protests. Microphones flew forward, questions overlapping. Mr. Cole, is Liam Carter your biological son? Yes. Did you hide him from the public? No, I didn't know he existed until last week. Will you step down from your position? Ethan paused. If that's what it takes to be a father, yes. The statement hit the air like a bomb. That night, back at the penthouse, Ethan found Liam sitting on the floor, building a Lego tower near the window. The city lights reflected in his eyes, tiny sparks of color against the rain outside. You saw the news? Ethan asked quietly. Liam nodded without looking up. They're mad at you. Yeah, Ethan said with a faint smile. They usually are. Liam turned the small Lego piece in his hand. Are you scared? Ethan sat beside him. A little. But I've been scared of the wrong things my whole life. Losing money, losing status. Turns out the only thing that really mattered was losing this, you. The boy looked at him, uncertainty flickering into something softer. Trust. Ethan reached for a folder beside him and slid it across the floor. "This is for you," he said. Inside were medical records, insurance papers, and a new hospital admission form. Liam frowned. "What's this?" "The doctors called. They reviewed your case." Ethan hesitated, his voice tightening. "That brace, it's not enough anymore. You'll need surgery soon." Liam's lips parted, but no sound came out. "Mom said we couldn't afford it." "Well," Ethan said, forcing a smile. "She was right about one thing. I can fix things." But what he didn't say, what he couldn't say, was that the surgery would cost more than money. It would take time, care, and a risk that frightened him more than any hostile takeover ever had. As Liam hugged him, Ethan stared out at the rain once more. Somewhere in the reflection of the glass he saw a man who was no longer a billionaire, no longer a ghost of ambition. He saw a father preparing to fight for something real. And as the storm outside intensified, so did his resolve. The empire could crumble, the headlines could fade, but he would not lose his son. Not again. The storm outside had finally passed, but inside Ethan Cole's world, another one was just beginning. He stood before a wall of screens in his office, financial tickers, market graphs, news feeds, all flashing his name like a warning. His company's stock had plummeted overnight. Investors were withdrawing. The empire he'd built brick by brick was collapsing, and he had only himself to blame. But this time Ethan didn't care. His focus was somewhere else entirely, on the small hospital 2 blocks away where Liam lay asleep, his leg wrapped in gauze, waiting for a surgery that could change everything. The doctors had been clear. The operation would require advanced equipment, rare specialists, and months of therapy. The cost was astronomical, even for a billionaire. But Cole Enterprises' assets were frozen pending investigation. Everything he owned was being clawed at by lawyers, board members, and creditors. The man who once had everything was running out of time. Ethan turned as Marcus entered the office, expression hard. "You're killing the company," the CFO said coldly. "Selling assets, liquidating holdings. What is this, Ethan? A redemption act?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Call it that if you want. I'm done trading people's lives for profit. You're giving it all up for a child you didn't even know existed until a week ago." Ethan looked him dead in the eye. "That's exactly why I have to." Marcus stared at him for a long moment, then sighed. "If you do this, you'll lose everything." Ethan's voice was calm. "I already did." Hours later, Ethan signed the final transfer documents. He sold his controlling shares in Cole Enterprises, his life's work, to fund Liam's treatment. It wasn't a calculated deal. It was a surrender. The ink bled slightly as he signed, his hand trembling. When he walked out of the office, the security guards didn't stop him. There was no applause, no farewell, just silence. The doors of the glass tower closed behind him like the end of an era. At the hospital, Liam woke to find him sitting beside the bed, hair disheveled, eyes tired but softer than ever. "Did it work?" the boy asked, his voice groggy. "It's all set," Ethan said. "You're going into surgery tomorrow." Liam smiled weakly. "Mom would have liked you like this." Ethan chuckled under his breath. "Yeah, took me long enough." He held the boy's hand as the machines hummed softly around them. For the first time there were no assistants, no shareholders, no deals, just a father and son waiting for morning. When dawn came, the doctors wheeled Liam away. Ethan watched the doors close behind the gurney, his reflection distorted in the polished glass. Every instinct screamed to control the situation, to manage the outcome like another business deal. But this was different. He couldn't buy this. He could only wait. Hours turned into eternity. Rain began to fall again outside the hospital windows, tapping out a rhythm that felt like time itself slipping away. Then finally, a doctor appeared, still wearing her surgical mask. "Mr. Cole," she said gently. The procedure was more complicated than expected. There were complications. Ethan's heart stopped. The world narrowed to the space between her words. "But," she continued. He made it through. He's stable. It'll be a long recovery, but he's going to walk again. Ethan exhaled a sound that was half laughter, half prayer. For the first time in years, tears came freely. He entered the room quietly. Liam slept peacefully, color returning to his face. On the bedside table was the old note, the one that had changed everything, now pressed beneath the glow of the morning sun. Ethan sat down, whispering, "You did it, kid." He leaned back in the chair, the weight of years lifting from his shoulders. He had lost billions, but gained something no number could ever measure. Outside, the rain stopped. And for Ethan Cole, the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was peace. Hospitals always felt too bright, too clean, too honest. Every sound, the hiss of ventilators, the shuffle of rubber soles on tile, carried a reminder that life was fragile, temporary, and out of human control. Ethan sat in the chair beside Liam's bed, a cup of untouched coffee cooling in his hands. The rhythmic beep of the heart monitor was the only thing anchoring him to the moment. Outside, thunder rolled low across the skyline. A storm was coming. It had been 3 days since the surgery. Liam was stable, but the doctors warned that the next 48 hours were critical. An infection could undo everything. Ethan stayed awake through the nights, watching the boy's chest rise and fall, terrified of the silence that might come next. His phone buzzed endlessly on the table, reporters, lawyers, ex-partners, vultures. The world wanted his attention, but he had none left to give. Then, sometime near midnight, the phone buzzed again, but this time the name made him freeze. Marcus Shaw, his former CFO. He hesitated, then answered. "What is it?" "Ethan, listen to me. The board is moving to seize your remaining assets. They're filing to revoke your charity transfer. They think you sold your shares under duress." "I don't care," Ethan said quietly. "You should. They're also going after the trust you set up for Liam's treatment. If the court freezes it..." Ethan's voice hardened. "Then I'll find another way." "Ethan," he hung up. He couldn't let the noise back in. Not now. He looked at Liam again, his small hands resting on the sheets, the faintest smile on his sleeping face. The boy was dreaming. Maybe of walking, maybe of his mother, maybe of a world that wasn't broken. The lights flickered as thunder cracked overhead. A nurse entered to check the monitors, and Ethan rose, restless. He walked to the window, staring out at the rain-slicked city below. For the first time, the empire he once owned looked tiny, fragile, just like everything else. "Mr. Cole," the nurse said softly, "you should rest." He shook his head. "Not yet." Then the monitor beeped, just once, irregularly. The nurse turned sharply. Another beep, then another. Too fast. Ethan's blood ran cold. "What's happening?" "His heart rate's spiking," she said, pressing the emergency call button. "Get Dr. Lin, now." Ethan backed away as the room flooded with nurses and alarms. The machines wailed, the storm outside roaring in eerie harmony. He stood frozen, watching through a blur of chaos. The boy, the only thing that mattered, surrounded by strangers fighting to keep him alive. Not again. Not after everything. The memory of Anna's hospital room flashed in his mind. Her pale hand, her fading voice whispering, "Don't forget who you are." He clenched his fists. "Come on, Liam," he murmured. "You're stronger than this. You have to be." Minutes felt like hours. Then, finally, the rhythm returned. The beep slowed, steadied. The nurse exhaled, shoulders dropping. "He's stable. We've got him." Ethan sank into the chair, trembling. The adrenaline drained from his body, leaving only gratitude and exhaustion. Later that night, after the staff left, he took Liam's hand. "You scared me," he whispered. "I thought I lost you." The boy stirred faintly, half awake. "You didn't," he murmured. "You stopped the car. You didn't keep driving." Ethan smiled through tears. "No, I didn't." He watched as the rain finally eased, clouds thinning to reveal a faint sliver of dawn. It felt like the world was breathing again. Outside, lightning flashed once more, but instead of fear, Ethan felt something different. Clarity. He realized the storm hadn't been sent to punish him. It had been sent to wash him clean. The morning sun broke over Seattle like a quiet promise. Golden light spilled across the hospital room, soft and forgiving. For the first time in weeks, Ethan Cole wasn't afraid to open his eyes. Liam was awake, sitting up in bed, his color back, his smile faint but steady. The boy's brace was gone, replaced by a cast and a thin scar that traced down his leg like a reminder of survival. He looked fragile still, but alive. And that was enough. Ethan entered carrying 2 cups of cocoa, a small habit they'd built over the long nights. "Morning, champ," he said. "Doctor says you're officially out of the woods." Liam grinned. "So, I made it?" Ethan sat on the edge of the bed. "You didn't just make it, you beat it." The boy sipped his cocoa, gaze wandering to the window where sunlight painted the city gold. "What happens now?" he asked. Ethan exhaled slowly. "Now, we start over." He meant it. Cole Enterprises was gone, sold to faceless investors. His penthouse, his cars, his jet, everything that once defined him were no longer his. But for the first time, he didn't feel empty. He felt light. A knock came at the door. It was Marcus Shaw, holding an envelope. "You've got mail," he said, half smiling. "Real mail, the kind with stamps." Ethan opened it. Inside was a letter on official stationery, the Board of Cole Foundation, the charitable wing he'd secretly funded years ago. "Mr. Cole, following your resignation and the liquidation of your assets, we have voted unanimously to rename the foundation in your honor. Its new mission, to support children in foster care and families in need of medical aid. We'll call it the Liam Carter Foundation." Ethan's eyes stung. He folded the letter and handed it to the boy. "Looks like you've got your own company now." Liam blinked. "For real?" "For real," Ethan said with a smile. "Guess you're the new CEO." The boy laughed, a sound Ethan realized he'd been living for without knowing it. Later that afternoon, they left the hospital together. Liam moved carefully, step by step, each one steadier than the last. The air smelled like rain and spring and second chances. Ethan didn't call for a driver. Instead, he took the bus, their bus, the same route, the same stop where everything had started. When they arrived, the bench was still there. The paint was chipped, the shelter still leaned slightly to the right, and the city's hum surrounded them. But now, the moment felt different. Full circle. Liam sat beside him, looking out at the street. "You think Mom's watching?" he asked quietly. Ethan nodded. "I know she is." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small frame. Inside was the note, Anna's handwriting, faded but eternal. "If you find him before I'm gone, tell him I forgive him. Tell Ethan Cole he was wrong, but it's not too late." Beneath the words, Ethan had added one more line, written in his own hand. "You stopped. Thank you, Dad." Liam smiled at the frame, then leaned against Ethan's shoulder. The sun dipped lower, warm and alive. Cars passed, people hurried, life moved on. But for Ethan Cole, time had finally slowed down. He had lost everything the world told him mattered, and found the only thing that ever truly did. As the last rays of daylight stretched across the pavement, Ethan whispered to the boy beside him, "You were never the one who needed saving, Liam. I was." And for the first time in his life, the billionaire who once owned the city sat perfectly still, content, human, free.